This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
The presidency has dismissed allegations that the Tinubu administration is operating four budgets at the same time, or plans to. The dismissal comes after President Tinubu received parliamentary approval to extend the capital component of the 2023 main and supplementary budgets, which will run at the same time as the 2024 national budget. Despite the presidency's rebuttal, civil society organization Budget has described the move as, quote, an unprecedented anomaly. Budget is calling for a return to the January-December budgetary cycle. For more on this, I'm joined by Vahiala Kwaga, who's Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Budget. Good morning and welcome, Mr. Kwaga.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So we'll start off with the presidency saying that they are not operating four budgets or planning to, and they've specifically pulled out the capital components of the 2023 main and supplementary budgets. How do you respond to this clarification statement?
So the issue really is about transparency and about reporting. I'm sure many of the listeners are aware that this administration has not released its budget implementation report. Now, that is basically an assessment of how well the government has spent money and how well the government has earned money. And this is meant to provide a snapshot of the government's fiscal position at a particular period. So as of today, we are unaware, we do not know from Q2 2023 just how well the government's fiscal position has been. Basically, since this administration commenced, we do not know how well it has spent money and how well it has earned money. All we have are, some patchy reports from the Accountant General's office that leave a lot more questions hanging than real answers. So bringing this issue of extending capital projects, which have not even been identified, there really has been no public communication as to what these capital projects are. It's quite worrisome that this administration is doing that at this time.
So when this first popped up, right, when it was being debated at the House of Representatives, we had some lawmakers stand up to say that, look, it's not illegal, but it is immoral. Despite this argument, we saw the National Assembly go ahead to approve the president's request. What should the Nigerian people be looking out for in terms of accountability since the request has already been granted?
So I'm glad you asked that question. Accountability and, when I say, the National Assembly playing the role of a National Assembly really is something that hasn't been seen so much as well. What we see is a National Assembly that seems all too eager to, in quotes, support or agree with the president. And for those that may not be aware, a National Assembly or a legislature is meant to serve as a check and a balance to an executive. There is a history of government, that we should learn from in countries of the world where executives are reined in, are kept in check by national assemblies, by legislatures, to ensure that the government is spending adequately and the government is carrying out its governance functions, efficiently and effectively. That's by the way. The real issue, I suppose, would be about audit. And again, there is a habit of the Nigerian National Assembly to withhold audit reports until 2, 3, 4 years down the line. So for the outgone 9th National Assembly, we just got audit reports for 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, I think last year, after the National Assembly has left office. So how can Nigerians hold the presidency accountable? How can they hold the National Assembly accountable when the audit reports that are meant to serve as an indication of how value for money has been, implemented, or how well value for money has been done in a budget when you are receiving them years after the act. I mean, it is unjustifiable that this is a permanent feature of the Nigerian political space. And our fear is that all of these projects that have been extended, that have been moved around, will simply not have any audit done. Or even if they do have an audit, it will come out sometime in 2027 or 2026. And I think that is unacceptable for a government that calls itself a liberal democracy, that calls itself a republic, that calls itself accountable and transparent.
So if I go back to a statement that was put out by the President's Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, this is Mr. Temitokwe Ajayi. He says that this extension is for the capital component again, that capital expenditure, and I'm quoting, the capital expenditures drive economic growth, strengthen private sector output, and create employment opportunities for citizens. A regular person seeing this who perhaps doesn't understand the intricacies of budget making and planning and whatnot, even I would see it and think there's nothing, it's not so bad. Why is there such a furore over 4 potential budgets running at the same time? What are the implications really?
Yeah, I mean, so in principle, there really is no problem with extending a component of a budget to another year. In fact, some jurisdictions are toying with the idea of operating multi-year budget cycles. But those jurisdictions that are toying with such are accountable to people, and they have reporting done in a timely and effective and efficient manner. Unlike Nigeria, where even the audit reports do not give a true picture of value for money. The Constitution, in its wisdom, unfortunately, did not give the Auditor General of the Federation the power to carry out a full value for money audit. What he does is basically just a check. Accountants would probably be able to elaborate more on that. But unfortunately, that check does not give the Auditor General the power to assess how well money has been spent. That's one issue. The second issue is the lag problem of capital projects generally, and this is something that is not peculiar to Nigeria. There's always a time lag between when a capital project is implemented and its impact is manifested in the economy. Capital projects, as the spokesperson rightly said, are meant to improve the economy of a country. Unfortunately, if those capital projects are not targeted, if those capital projects have not been planned accordingly, there is a potential or a likelihood that they will not achieve the purpose for which they were carried out. And this is even more challenging where you have a problem of lag. For instance, say you construct a road between 2 states, meant to improve the movement of goods and services. What if, in just using a hypothetical example, there happened to be some lack of rain, or there was some bandit attack and the farmers could not even farm, and goods could not be moved, and people had to be dispersed, so the road was not even used. The impact of that capital project would not have been felt. And it's even difficult to say for sure what its impact would have been on the economy, since the people, the goods and services that should have been plying that road, did not. So these are the challenges with running a government. It's complex stuff, but we insist that the government is open and transparent and talks to Nigerians and makes these justifications and does this in a public forum and is willing to take correction. That, we think, is how this issue should have been approached. But, to conclude, there really is no issue with extending a project, but what we want is better transparency, more accountability, and for the executive to actually talk to Nigerians and take us seriously.
So just finally, right, we are expecting the president to present a supplementary budget for 2024. And if we go by the track record of the National Assembly, they will essentially approve that request. What do you expect the lawmakers to scrutinize. How do you expect them to approach this supplementary budget in light of the extension for the two budgets of 2023?
I'm not particularly expectant that there will be any serious scrutiny of this budget. I do not get a sense that the current National Assembly is interested in serving as a check and a balance to the executive. And it's unfortunate because the whole point of the issue of separation of powers is to ensure that one arm of government does not dominate the political space, does not dominate the decision-making space. But from the previous National Assembly, the ninth National Assembly, to this one, we do not see that happening at all. What we see is a National Assembly that is far too compliant with the president, and in some way that has poisoned the doctrine of separation of powers in Nigeria. And it's more like a quasi, very, very, sorry to use this word, but a sinister relationship where these issues of serving as a check and balance simply do not arise and do not exist. And more so, the National Assembly appears not to want to carry people along in terms of providing notices and calls, for attendance of, when these issues are being debated. In the recent past, we've heard of instances where journalists and newsmen have been kept out, from deliberations, and oftentimes we do not get adequate explanations for why, certain projects are being implemented or are being carried out, and it really does help the concept of representation. And it's sad that the legislators fail to realize that they are there because of the people. They are not there for themselves, they are there as representatives of the people. But it seems like that duty doesn't really exist so much.
I mean, it's clear that we have to wait for the supplementary budget to be presented, and we'll certainly keep an eye out on how things unfold. Mr. Kwaga, thank you so much for joining us and for your thoughts on the conversation this morning. My guest is Vahiala Kwaga, who's Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Budget, joining me to discuss the presidency's dismissal of allegations that they plan to operate 4 budgets within 2024. This comes shortly after the National Assembly approved an extension of the capital components for the main and supplementary budgets of 2023.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.